Okay, so now we're actually going to do a bit of logic. Okay, so we're going to actually switch between red, orange, and gray by controlling which input this will select, but at copy time. Now, I always try to show this the first day with Houdini, and this is actually one of the harder expressions that you will do in Houdini. So if you get this expression, if you don't worry about it. Just look it up, practice, whatever. But yeah, this doesn't get much harder than this. Okay. So the expression we're going to learn is the stamp expression. All right. So I'll set this up. Delete all this. Okay. So we've got merge our brick. Then we used the point sop, which we all know and love by now. So we did red on this, whatever other colors you guys want. Okay, I did red, orange, and gray. Now I'm going to do something to copy it onto, which is my sphere with points. Okay, so everybody actually ran into this. I need to explain this a bit better. By default, the sphere in Houdini, very useful, starts off as a primitive. Now, primitive in Houdini, I would describe as an equation for a surface. Okay? So, most, I can think of like Max at least, and it had primitive, was almost always meant polygon. I don't believe it had a primitive sphere. So, this is a primitive sphere. It's actually the pi, whatever, to generate this sphere, and it can generate the sphere at render time too. So if you have, say, 10 million particles, you can actually get them all to be different sizes of spheres because you have the raw equation for a sphere. And that's pretty cool. Okay, right here. However, if you want to do modeling and stuff with this, you probably don't want a primitive because you can't really do much with it. It's only like a single point in space. See, it's just got one point there. So if I copy onto this, if I copy my red brick onto this, I'm just going to get the same as my brick. So I went from here to here. It didn't do anything. Okay, it's just because there's a single point at the center of my sphere. That's it. See that pointer in there, the blue thing? Okay. Now, if I change this to a polygon, I get all kinds of crazy points. Okay, and you can adjust the frequency as well. Okay. It has other modes too. Polygon mesh. Mesh has NURBS. Okay. So I'm going to do with polygon. And we get some red bricks in sphere pattern. Okay. Now, we want to use that expression to randomly switch between red, orange, and gray. So I'm going to use my switch sop here and plug them all in. So we want it to do this. See how it's switching? Okay. All right. So how do we do that? Well, we could use like, kinds of tricky with point attributes, right? But here we're just going to do it directly with the copy sop. So over here we have a tab called stamp. Okay, and we'd have to check this box, stamp inputs. The reason why they have a checkbox is because it does take a speed hit. And if you design systems with hundreds of nodes, you do want to pay attention to stuff like speed and things like that. Okay, so here I'm going to make a local variable, all right, so that I can access from another place. So I'm going to call this color. Okay, so it can either be color 0, color 1, or color 2, right? Okay, so now I'm going to go and grab this color. So it has this piece of information inside of it. It had a place I added that. So now in this switch, I'm going to access it with the stamp. Stamp. Okay, so the stamp, it'll tell me how it works because anytime you type an expression in Houdini, it gives you a little bit of help here. Okay, so the scope. What it means by that is what node are you talking about? This node, by default, has no knowledge whatsoever of this node. Okay? So I'm going to type it in. I'm going to do a reference to it. I could do obj brick technique 2 copy 1. Everybody follow that from earlier today? How we reference the nodes like that? But what happens if I'm building this self-contained system and then I change the name at the top level and there's 2 of them and all kinds of stuff? You'd actually want something more confined to the system itself, right? You wouldn't want to have to go through, if it's buried like 10 networks deep, to have to type all that and use it like that. So instead I'm going to use what's called a relative reference. Does anyone know what that is?
Reference based off of where you currently are.
Yes. Everybody hear that? Reference based off of where you currently are. Okay, so I'm currently in obj brick copy technique 2. So why type all that when I'm just going from here to here? So instead of obj blah blah blah, I'm going to do ... Okay, and what that means is take where I am with 1 dot. This is myself, 1 dot. Okay, then if I go 2 dots, it's going 1 out of itself. So instead of switch 1, I'm in obj brick copy technique 2. So now I'm here, essentially. I'm like in space right here. Okay, so 2 dots. Now I'm going to go and say, oh, okay, now I have access to these guys. So copy 1. There we go. So we just did a relative reference. That sure beats the other reference we did, right? Okay, so now we have the second one. Notice this is in quotes. Okay, so what's the second one? We want the token. So the token, by that it means this word right here. This word is color. So I'm going to say, okay, color. That's in quotes as well. All right. Now, it has one last value. Say it can't find this. It doesn't want to give you an error. So it wants a default value in case it can't find it. So in this case, I want the default value to be red if I unplug it. So I'll put that as 0. Does that make sense? If the expression can't evaluate, set it to the first input. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I've just accessed that piece of information from my downstream copy. So as it copies, it's going to say, oh, there's a stamp expression. I better fill in that value. Okay, anytime you stamp, it's kind of like, you know, before you stamp it on a piece of paper, you might change that word that it's stamped on. Okay, so every time it makes a new brick, it's going to see that stamp expression like red, orange, gray, orange. Okay, so here, if I change this value now, okay, notice if I change it to 1, I get that. If I change it to 2, I should get gray. There we go. Okay, so I can control it downstream. Big deal, right? So why didn't I just switch it up there? Well, the big deal is that now we can use an expression that has access to this information over here. In this case, the point number. So I want to access the point number of my sphere. 37, 40, 44, whatever. And I'm going to use that point number as a random seed. Okay, so if I do rand $PT, which is the point number coming in the second input, I'm going to get an assortment between the first 2 inputs because it can go from 0 to 1, right? If I want to do between the first 3, what should I do to this expression? Right now it's either 0 for red or 1 for orange. How do I get it to go from 0 to 2? Okay, let's try plus 1. Well, now it's going between orange and gray. What did you say over there? Multiply it. There we go. Let's try to multiply it. Cool. All right, so now we're randomly switching, and if you want, we can do other stuff like, you know, switch these guys out with different objects as well. Okay. All right, so
quick question.
Yeah.
Is the stamp tool automatically rounding?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's a float value in here,
Yeah.
However, this will only take an integer value.
Okay, so it's just rounding up.
So yeah, if we wanted to, we could do a floor in this, or a round. Like that. Okay?
Okay.
But it didn't change anything. So. All right, so yeah, let's work on that last little bit there. I'll put it back to the this for simplicity. Let's try to get that stamp to work, and we'll just finish up the class like that. And yeah, you guys can handle this.